Well, hello and welcome to this month's masterclass in the profit maximization series. And if you recall, last month we spoke about customer experience and the importance of giving a great customer experience. And this month, I'm very pleased to announce that we have two great guests with us, Stacy Savage, who's the owner of Zero Waste Strategies, and Mike Schuler, who is representing Tech Remarketing. And this month, we are going to be looking at how we can increase the profit in our business through waste management strategies and also establish environmental credentials and set us up for success in the marketplace with the persona of our branding. So as we've discussed in the past, we're looking at the multiple levels of business growth. How do we generate revenue? How do we maximize profit? And then how do we prepare our business for high value exit? So here we're in the middle of that process. We're looking at different strategies, different techniques for profit maximization. And of course, every dollar that we don't waste, every dollar that we don't spend is worth about $4 or $5 in unrequired sales revenue. So, maximizing your profit is a great way. If you're struggling with sales, let's look at not having the money go out the door, or let's look at eking out additional profit from the margin from the work we've already done. So this is a great fit in our journey. We're looking at profit maximization, and this is a pretty unique take on how we can increase the profitability in our business and at the same time generate credibility in the marketplace with our potential clients, with our business partners. So after that preamble, Stacy, Mike, welcome. Thank you for joining us on the webinar this month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So it's great to have two additional presenters with me. Takes a lot of pressure off me. So I'm going to pass the baton straight to Stacy. And Stacy, you are welcome. And we're looking forward to hearing what you have to tell us about implementing zero waste strategies in a business.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to share with the audience here. And we are going to go through just kind of a basic Zero Waste 101 so that we can understand kind of some common definitions as well as some key concepts that we have found that work with in the zero waste construct, as well as for our business clients. So I'll go ahead and just share my screen here. Okay, so again, my name is Stacy Savage, aka the Texas Trash Talker. I'm the founder and owner of Zero Waste Strategies. So we work with businesses, local government agencies, institutional campuses such as colleges, medical facilities, restaurants. We help them to reduce waste to landfill and incinerator. And in order to do that, we follow the zero waste hierarchy. And that, of course, is the 3 R's that we all know and love, but there's actually more like 9 R's. And so we implement these strategies to help businesses reduce waste, to drive a green marketing edge, to empower their employees, to really build brand affinity and recognizability, as well as reduce costs. So anywhere that you can find a business efficiency, you're going to be able to maximize your cost around or optimize your cost around that. So the agenda we have here is kind of the introduction, talk about what zero waste is. I deleted the recycling pop quiz, so we'll skip that, but for time's sake, and then go over how zero waste, how businesses can go zero waste. So again, I'm the founder and CEO. I started my career off as a door-to-door canvasser and program manager, as well as lobbyist for a statewide environmental nonprofit. And we worked on the extended producer responsibility bills, EPR bills, for electronics recycling. That puts the onus on the manufacturers to take back and recycle responsibly and for free their e-waste, like computers and televisions. I also helped pass 4 local recycling ordinances in the Austin area regarding business recycling, curbside composting, construction and demolition debris recycling. I was also a co-host on Shades of Green, which is a weekly live green talk radio show for 5 years. And I helped co-found the nonprofit Austin Zero Waste Alliance. In 2017, I was appointed by my city council member to be one of the commissioners on the Zero Waste Advisory Board. And I'm currently an elected and sitting board member and on the executive committee of the State of Texas Alliance for Recycling, which is a statewide nonprofit advocacy group for recycling policy and promotion of economic development through recycling. So our client list includes some pretty big names you may recognize here, but we also work with mid-sized businesses, mom and pops, commercial kitchens. Let's say if you produce municipal solid waste, like your recyclables, food waste, and normal landfill trash, we're going to be able to help you reduce that material and help you optimize within your business. So let's get on the same page here. What is zero waste? So it's globally defined as 90% or more waste reduction from landfills and incinerators. The goal date is 2040, but sometimes that sticks, sometimes it doesn't. Maybe we'll want to do it a little bit sooner. So let's go for that. Why not? There are many government ordinances across the country, just a few in Austin, Fort Collins, New York City, even in Texas here, we've got Dallas, San Antonio, and Houston all have commitments to zero waste. We've also seen corporate commitments and these companies moving toward this 90% goal, such as Dell, Sierra Nevada Brewing, and Xerox Company. So some really notable school campuses as well. We're looking at University of Texas at Dallas. Of course, I've got to throw all my Texas references in there, y'all. Vanderbilt, Antioch, and nonprofits are really starting to understand that reducing waste also reduces costs. So anywhere a nonprofit can save money is a great advancement for them in their budget cycle. And of course, conferences are going the zero waste route as well. And they're helping their attendees understand their individual actions at the bin systems to properly handle their materials that they're being recycled and composted and landfill trash. They're being source separated correctly at the bin. So some key terms when we talk about diversion, this is the actual act of reducing the waste materials from the landfills. And that can be done by your calculated reductions, reuse, repair, remanufacturing, refabrication, resoiling, which is your composting activities. There's all sorts of re's, quote unquote, out there that we can implement within a business before recycling even becomes an option. So those are normally the ways that we tackle further upstream, more beneficial reuse of these products rather than just sending them straight to recycling. Zero waste, we went over this, it's 90% reduction, that's the goal. Organic compostable material, organics, we're not really talking about the organics aisle in your grocery store. We're talking about anything that grows from the ground, such as plants or came from something that grows, such as meat and paper towels. So composting is a natural process that breaks down those organic materials into a dark soil-like material called compost. This is a soil amendment. This is packed with nutrients and minerals and vitamins. And this is something that farmers used to put on their crops so that in turn, we as humans and the food that we're feeding to our families are more nutritious as well. So a reason that zero waste is very important is, you've really, like I said, heard of the 3 R's, but there's a lot more that gets prioritized outside of that or inside that hierarchy. And we talked about reduction, reuse, and recycling, but we also want to prioritize refusal of waste at the very, very top, even before reduction. Repair, again, remanufacturing, resoiling, upcycling, donations are huge, downcycling is huge. And again, recycling and organics composting are the very last resorts. Did you know that for every pound of waste that is carted out to the curb, there are 71 pounds of waste product upstream that were used in order to make that 1 pound of waste downstream at your curb? So that's really something to think about. If you can understand how waste at the curb is actually the tip of the iceberg, what's underneath is the bulk. What happened upstream, further upstream, before you even got to the store to buy that product off the shelf, is the bulk of where the materials are being used. So in relation to that, food waste makes up about 30 to 40% of the entire landfill stream in the US. So if you think about getting to that 90% reduction goal, especially if your company has a food permit, getting food waste reduction options in place is going to tackle 30 to 40% of that right up front, especially if you train your staff to do that correctly. So another reason that zero waste is so important is that you've heard of the 3 Ps, and people, planet, profit. But for me, in my line of work, I believe that you can't just wag your finger in someone's face and say, you must do this and recycle and compost like they're robots. You got to get them invigorated around the purpose, around why we're doing this. Why? Because it creates jobs. It builds local material markets. It saves money. It saves landfill space. We want to starve landfills and feed the newly emerging circular economy, not a linear economy that we're currently stuck in. We want to connect the two ends of the linear economy and make them into a loop so that we're constantly reusing these materials and putting people to work doing that. How are we going to do this? It is driven by corporate policy as well as governmental policy. It gives corporations a strong green marketing edge to elbow out the competition, and it helps you reduce greenhouse gas emissions, meaning you can report on your annual sustainability reports. You can show that itemized reduction year on year. So the policies within the company and policies within the local government or state government that even out the playing field for all businesses in that area is really critical. If you've got several businesses that are doing more than their fair share and some businesses that are complete laggards doing nothing, it's not an even playing field, no matter what industry you're looking at. And so that's where I believe policy is going to make a huge difference. And we had mentioned earlier in slide 2 or 3, where local governments are putting these policies into place to make sure that all the companies need to be able to follow the same rules. So getting to job creation, which is a very big deal in the zero waste world. It's not just about the environmental impacts, it's about the economics that drive, that zero waste drives, right? So if you take a look out your window and you see the trash man coming down your street and they're ready to pick up your cart, it goes away somewhere, right? It goes to the landfill or to the recycling processing center, or your food waste, if it's separated out, will go to a composting facility. Who runs these composting facilities, recycling plants? These are jobs in the local community that we can create, but we can't do that unless we have the source separated materials that are ready for processing at the plant that they get taken to. So these are well-paying green jobs with dignity. Those landfill processors, the recyclers, the composters, the repair and reuse sector, these are job sectors or job creators that can really boost the local economy and help stabilize the tax base as well in the local area. Okay, so zero waste for businesses. Now that we've got a kind of common vernacular around zero waste, we can go into a little bit more detail around what can businesses do within their structure. And so a really big eye-opener for a lot of businesses is that a recent survey of about 6,000 people showed that consumers will pay more for a product that they know was created in an environmentally friendly way, or has environmentally friendly materials, or they know it's going to be recycled. So these purchasing prefer these purchasing of responsible products because what they're being offered on the shelf, they have a choice. If they know your product is going to be the one that is more green oriented and aligns with their eco values, then that's the one that they're going to select off of the shelf of your competitors. So one thing to look at is internally your procurement department. Do your vendor contracts have waste diversion or material restriction clauses? What I mean by that is, do your vendors work with suppliers that are ethical? Are they using deforestation practices? If they are, you need to either redo your vendor contract or you need to get rid of them and find someone else. Are they using child labor? We need to look into the ethical practices of our our own vendor contracts and make them, like fill out a questionnaire, if you will, around what their own suppliers and vendors are doing to get you the materials that your vendors that you've contracted with to your supply chain. Another thing to look at are the bulk purchases. Many grocery stores will now allow bulk purchases for their consumers that come in, and they'll bring their own containers. Do you allow that? Are your vendors allowing bulk purchases as well? So supply chain management really talks about the upstream and downstream. If you think about it, your company is the fulcrum of the seesaw. On one side is the upstream of all the products that are being produced that you are selling. And then on the downstream is what happens whenever the products that you sell leave your property and go to be transported and stocked on store shelves. Can your consumers then responsibly manage the materials that you sold to them? So there's a lot of balancing act that goes on with that seesaw, and you're in the middle being able to manage that supply chain. And the environmentally preferable purchasing practices, the EPA actually has an EPPP guide. So that's for environmentally preferable purchasing practices. It's really long and cumbersome name, but the EPPP guidelines on the EPA's website, you can take a look at those and implement some of those practices into your own business structure and train the purchasers within your business to follow that guideline and to make sure that the vendors are being vetted properly. Also, looking at your facilities departments, are your hauler contracts right-sized for your specific business needs? A lot of times you'll set up shop, you'll have all of your energy and water needs, and then finally at the very end you think, oh yeah, we need a trash system. And then the hauler comes out, you get a couple of quotes, and they're like, we'll do it for this much. We'll give you this many dumpsters, and you need this much capacity, and we'll pick it up this many times a week. But do you really need all of that capacity? Do you really need that many dumpsters if you're not getting a right-sized approach for your specific business needs and how much materials you're actually producing and generating out the back end of your business? Then you are paying the hauler to cart air off of your property. And they're fine with it. So it's important to get a right-sized approach and to know, and one way that you can do that is to track your fill levels in your dumpsters daily or weekly, right before the hauler comes to pick it up. So that means you have to know your hauler schedule, of course, and assign this or delegate this to someone who is on the facilities maintenance team who walks the grounds of your property all the time They're already out there. Just have them do a little lid lifting, take a peek inside and see, track it on a spreadsheet. Oh, how it was at 25%, 50, 75%. Are we full and overflowing? That's another big problem. Then that, if you've got a lot of space or not enough space, then your contracts are not right sized. Of course, you want to do that on average throughout a month, 2 months, 3 months, but getting an average fill level right before the haulers come each week is really critical to making sure that your contracts are in proportion to what you actually need, and that you have the opportunity to renegotiate that contract if you see there is a need for less dumpster space, less frequency of pickup. Maybe you need a little bit more, but whenever we can make those adjustments, that's where we see a huge cost savings most of the time. And those cost savings can be put toward new programs such as recycling and food waste diversion if you don't have those set up just yet. One of our clients has in St. Louis, they are a major pet food brand. They manufacture pet foods, and they actually have an entire repair facility on their property. It's over 3 million square foot property. They have 3,000 employees. It's a, I guess, 17-foot tall office. They've got a lot of office space and a lot of office equipment. So they have an entire wing that is dedicated to broken equipment repair. So think about broken casters on your office chair or your rolly carts. Think about the soda machine in your employee cafeteria that was broken. So you can put a call in. They'll come and either fix it or they'll cart it out to their facility, and they'll actually repair it and bring it back instead of spending money on new office equipment, which I had never seen before. And it was really brought me a lot of hope that a corporation that large put that much thought and effort into the repair side of their zero waste strategy. So another way that you can be zero waste at work, of course, having a 3-bin system. The caveat is recycling and composting offered in your local area? Do you have the facilities to take these materials? If you don't, then of course you'll just have the 1-bin system for your landfill trash. But it's really critical to make sure that you are finding out and you're investigating your local regional area to see if there's any recycling or composting facilities nearby, or who service your area to come and do the pickup for you so that you can negotiate that contract. And if you're going to do that, take a look at your landfill contract that may already be set up to see where we can right size that program and drive those costs down so that you can funnel those cost savings into those new recycling and food waste composting programs. And this is the color coding setup. So usually it's green, blue, and black. And the liners for these bins really important as well, because compost bin liners need to be biodegradable. And so it's important not to put a plastic bag in your compost, because it's all going to the compost heap and it all needs to be able to break down, in tandem. So if that plastic bag is there, it's just going to be sitting out like a sore thumb. It's not going to break down in the 6 weeks or 90 days that it usually takes. It's going to be there for 100 years. So we don't want that. Recycling, you can either line your bin or not. Some recycling haulers don't even want you to line their bin. They just want the free sitting materials in your dumpster. But some do, so you have to contact them. And then, of course, the trash should be kind of the lowest amount, if you will, because we're diverting that 30 to 40% to compost and probably about 50% to recycling. So again, having color-coded signage is really important as well to reduce bin contamination. You don't want recyclable materials in your compost, and you don't want food waste, banana peels, and your coffee grounds in your recycling bin. That just causes a nightmare for the downstream vendors that have to process all of your products that you have separated. And it kind of just defeats the purpose, right? Another thing to be aware of is the personal habits of your employees. Are they huge fans of Starbucks? Do they bring in, bottles and plastic containers from Starbucks on a daily or multiple times a day basis? Are they a fast food connoisseur? Do you have pizza boxes roaming the halls? Like what is coming into your waste stream? So it's important to be able to look inside the bins internally as well to see if you can identify any contamination issues, if you can identify things like recyclables that are ending up in the garbage can, these materials that are being mismanaged, they're being improperly handled. So it's important to be able to start identifying and maybe not calling people out specifically, but you can take a photo of the contamination that you see in a bin and send it to your department and say, hey, this isn't going to fly, folks. We have to do the source separating. As a reminder, please follow the signage. And that gives everybody that kind of, oh yeah, that was me. Some folks will be able to identify their own contamination. So for employees, this is really critical as well. So providing employees annual or semi-annual training. It would include all your current staff and your new staff. They should receive training on proper recycling and composting techniques if those are the bins, that you have set out for them. And one way to do this is to make it fun, make some games out of it, of course. And this making it fun and talking trash with folks, it's usually, not fun. It's not sexy. Nobody likes to talk about it. It just goes away somewhere. But we have to remind folks, especially our employees, where is a way when we live on a circular planet with finite resources. We are the generators of the materials. We are the ones who need to be responsible. So making sure that the ownership is with the employee, but you're empowering them with fun techniques that will help the information stick in their brain. Another great technique is to use the employee onboarding process to make responsible recycling actions part of the employee's work agreement for accountability. This is an amazing tool for management leverage to hold these your employees accountable to using these programs properly. If your staff is getting routine takeout and delivery orders, one thing that you can train them on is to refuse those common items like the condiment packets, the napkins, the plastic, single-use plastic cutlery, the straws, salt and pepper packets. You don't need all of that because what? They're taking it back to the kitchenette at your office, most likely. You've got plates. Hopefully you've got plates, reusable plates for them. You've got mugs, you've got silverware, all this stuff that can be washed. So, that's one way that you can help them reduce their own waste is to remind them before they make that order to put a note into the order or on the phone with your order taker or the delivery driver. We don't need these materials. You can keep them. Another thing that employees can do is kind of bring your own basics. This photo to the right, as you can see, the water bottle, the coffee mug that we just talked about, cutlery, having all of this ready for them in your small kitchenettes or encouraging them to bring their own from home is really going to help drive less trash and even less recyclables in your bins, which eventually could mean you can renegotiate those hauler contracts and see more cost savings. So I want to talk now about true zero waste facility certification. Now, you've probably heard of LEED certification for energy and water through the U.S. Green Building Council. They have millions and millions and millions of square feet of certified green building, and they have met rigorous standards. But True is just like LEED, well, similar, but it's for zero waste reduction. And it follows about 7 to 10 different categories of diversion, employee training, how do you handle hazmat materials, hazardous materials, how do you, is your CEO on board? Do they have a statement publicly on the website? There's all sorts of different categories that you can earn points like you would with LEED certification. And I think it goes up to about 81 points and you only need 31 to qualify. So if you've got at least a basic program going, you can actually start the True program, and Zero Waste Strategies is qualified to administer the True certification program for your business. And so we, provide the waste audit. We'll do the data analysis and reporting. We'll be able to provide the employee training and filing your submission and eventually getting that True certification awarded to your business. And sometimes it takes a little bit more time. Sometimes it's something that can happen really rapidly. It just depends on what level you're at in your business currently. And how much work we need to do in order to get you to that 90% goal. So these are some additional resources that you can take a look at. Zero Waste International Alliance is the global zero waste kind of hub. These are where the definitions of zero waste actually started. And again, the U.S. Green Building Council, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation talks a lot about the circular economy and moving away from linear economy. The Five Gyres Institute talks about the swirling gyres in all of our oceans that are from plastics. And the Story of Stuff project is really great if you have children and you need to explain these large concepts. These are cartoon vignettes. They're maybe about 20 minutes long, but they explain very large, high-level topics in a way that's fun and educational for kids. So my final question for everyone is, if we're not for zero waste, how much waste are we for? And here's my contact information if you would like to get in touch.
Thank you, Stacy. That was great. Let's put a question. I know we've got several people watching the show. So if there's any questions for Stacy, by all means, let's put them in the chat, and I'm sure she'll either answer them now or we can answer them at the end. And just before we head over to Mike, I just want a couple of points you made, Stacy. You shocked me when you said that for every pound of waste that I carry to the curb, there's 71 pounds of upstream waste. I mean, as a consumer, what can I do to help that? Because I make my own trash, and so okay, well, I'm trying to be fairly careful with what goes into the waste cycle. But what can I do to help with that 71 pound of upstream waste?
Well, not much.
Okay.
Not much.
Okay.
I mean, one thing that you can do is reduce your own consumption habits and practices. Another thing that you can do is contact these companies that you are a loyal customer of and ask them, what is their zero waste policy? Can you find it on their website? Are they tracking waste reduction in their annual corporate sustainability report? And call them out on Twitter or X, whatever we're calling it these days. Facebook them, call them their customer service line, send them an email, but really helping them understand that people are watching their every move. And
Sure.
Especially if you're a consumer of theirs and you've been a lifelong customer or you've been with them for 10 years, or put that in your messaging. They don't want to lose your business. Because they didn't track their landfill dumpsters. They want to make sure that they're improving upon what they're already doing, or they're so proud of what they're already doing, they're going to tell you, here's what we're doing, X, Y, and Z, boom, boom, boom. We've had this waste reduction year on year on year, and you can be proud to keep shopping with us. They're going to, give you that confidence that you need to remain a customer of theirs. But a lot of times there's greenwashing, and we don't want to allow that. So calling them on the carpet, making sure that they have measurable statistics that they're accountable to is really critical.
Okay. And one last question. I mean, a couple of years ago, I volunteered through a church to, prepare food for a food bank. And we used to get a big haul of stuff from the local Starbucks. We get all the cakes and everything, and we would sort them, and then they would do a weekly distribution. But you said 40% of the landfill is food waste. I know in France they have legislation that says supermarkets must give their produce to food banks and everything. Why don't we have that here?
Well, again, that's the policy piece that I was talking about earlier. If a company has an internal policy that says no food to landfill, and there's a food reuse or repurposing policy, there's you follow the legal food donation parameters through the EPA and the USDA. There's ways that you can do that, but it's going to come from the top, putting those policies into place, just like it would come from government. And like you said, in France and even in California has, a statewide organics diversion policy on the books for all residents and all businesses. So, it really takes political will. And a lot of the times it's because businesses still think that they will be legally liable if they donate food and someone gets sick, that they will be sued. And that's not the case. I'm here to bust that myth immediately through the Good Samaritan Act of 1996 under the Clinton administration. And it lets you off the hook as a business if you have a food permit and you're donating those food items to a nonprofit food redistribution organization like your county food bank, to where those food items have been kept to proper time and temperature standards through the health code of your state, and that they're made in good faith. You're not going to leave a box of chicken out, in the Texas heat for 4 hours and then decide, oh yeah, we need to donate this. It's got to be in good faith and kept to those proper time and temperature standards through the health department. And you are, like I said, you're free of legal liability. Not only that, you get to take a 15% fair market deduction off your taxes for that donation. So it's good to keep a manifest of when you donated, what it was, how much, weight wise, volume, who you sent it to, and keep that manifest going so that you can attach it to your taxes and show that you've made these legal food donations and that you should be awarded a tax break.
Well, that's great news. Thank you. Okay, so we looked at the philosophy and the principles, and we talked about refurbishment and repurposing has been a big part of that diversion. So that's Mike's introduction. So Stacy, thank you for that information. And Mike, hardware, we talked about some software issues. We talked about some the food issues with Stacy. Now over to you. What can we do about the hardware issues?
Well, appreciate the opportunity. Stacy, thank you for all of that. And David, appreciate the introduction. Just a quick overview regarding my background. I've been in the secondary market my entire career since 1981. I worked for two of the largest rental lease companies selling their used equipment early because they had to refresh their inventory actively for rental customers. So we had about $100 million portfolio of everything from electronic test equipment, computers, peripherals, used equipment. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, it came back.
Ultimately, after working for the rental lease companies for about 13 years, I went to work for one of the companies I was selling to, a parts company that was also involved in personal computer remarketing. And I spent another dozen years with them and another 8 years with an organization focused on returns management, reverse logistics, remanufacturing, all of which we kind of broadly cover into ITAD. You're taking lease returns, processing that material and selling it into the market, as well as parts harvesting. Matter of fact, that's one of the things we'll talk about briefly is the service aspect of resale and how that plays into the market itself. So I've been very fortunate that in my career, I've been up and down the product life cycle, had this exposure, but as I say, my entire focus has been engaging with the secondary market. And that's what we're here to talk a little and take advantage of what the industry offers you from a value recovery perspective. You know, just like there was talking about the recycle aspect of things, reuse is very important because actually from a carbon footprint standpoint, it's been tracked that it's anywhere from 4 to 7 times less of an impact to the environment for reusing material versus recycling material. So it's definitely the better option of the two. So this is our agenda. We're going to cover the product lifecycle of information technology. A little bit of a history lesson. The best way to learn is from those people that had to learn because of volume. People that manufacturers, retailers, organizations that had huge volumes of equipment, leasing rental companies and so forth. They had to deal with these problems in much broader terms than any typical business. But those lessons can be imparted onto you and how you can actually impact your value recovery by taking those same kind of lessons. We're also going to talk about what is ITAD, how big is the industry. You know, in general, ITAD means when it's end of use product, it doesn't mean that it's end of life. And that's our job, is to redeploy those assets, recover value from those assets, and mitigate your risk. Okay, so product life cycle of computer technology generally runs about 10 years. Now, electronic test equipment, on the other hand, could have a 30-year life cycle. Reason being, the principal function of what test equipment does hasn't really changed much in the last 40 years. A signal generator, spectrum analyzer, oscilloscope still does the same thing, and the technology used to do those tests are still the same. So we found test equipment will actually recover 20, 30, 40% residuals 20 years out. Computers, not the case. Obviously, in case of computers, everything's based on speed, performance, and cost of support. So In general, it might surprise you, though, that you could still get a decent recovery all the way out to as much as 10 years on PCs, particularly in cases of things like portable computers, Apple computers, things of that nature. Still get recover value over the scrap value from recycling. So we consider that to be a viable reuse strategy where you can sell it, recover value on the used equipment side, and get more money for it through the resale side of the equation. As a life cycle, you take a look at the totality of the life cycle of information technology. It runs through different cycles. The first component is returns. Returns management accounts for a huge part of the industry. It generally runs in the first 12 months of the cycle, and you can see the tracked residuals as material is returned. Returns have been a problem for the industry for a long time, but it's gotten significantly better in the last 15 to 20 years. Back in the early days of the PC industry, organizations like Packard Bell had return rates of 13 to 17% of everything they shipped. That's a huge amount of material coming back as a return product. I'll share some stories about what they did with that made it rather interesting. Beyond that, though, you had issues with normal returns of electronic computers and so forth, running around 6% to an end user, whereas sales to enterprise organizations typically run with return rates of 1% to 2%. It's still a lot of product, though, that organizations had to deal with, and how they learned how to deal with that changed the industry. The next phase is trade-ins. Trade-ins really were introduced. I introduced the first trade-in program with Apple back in the early 90s. The Apple Exchange program in 92 and subsequently in 94, where we took product that was not only Apple product, but non-Apple product from companies they were displacing and schools that they were putting their Apple equipment into. We took that product out by offering a trade. Now trade-in programs are found everywhere in the cell phone industry. Matter of fact, all the major cell phone carriers offer trade-in solutions, and it's part of their strategy to actually wrap that into their marketing. So it's become very common that you're going to upgrade your phone at 3 years, at 4 years. So that's part of the phase of that life cycle. ITAD is the following phase, and actually the longest phase of the product life cycle. It generally kicks in where it is end of use for you, but it's not end of life for the product itself. It generally runs from around 3 years to about 10 years. So it's a very long cycle. Recycling, of course, kicks in whenever a company lets that material go to a recycler, but it's not actually redeployed. It's not actually put out for reuse. And you can see the residuals are barely a blip here. That's because they're paying cents per pound. There's really not much recovery value. Although it kicks in around 4 years as an average for the recycling industry, that's lost revenue opportunities for organizations that could have recovered value from that material, but because of policies or other, decided to recycle it instead of putting it out to an ITAD vendor. So let's talk about some of the lessons learned by the industry as a whole. Reverse logistics is the front end of the life cycle. Returns management, things you had to deal with. Well, what does that comprise of? Well, first off, it's a matter of getting the product back from the end user, the company, whoever has the material, and getting it back. That's the reverse logistics side of the equation. Returns management is something that most ITAD companies get quite efficient at, whether it be packing up the material, shipping the material, aggregating material. Cutting costs on that logistics is important because it affects the ultimate recovered value. Getting it to a returns processing center, what you do with that equipment. Is it material that actually warrants repair? Does it warrant refurbishment? Does it warrant repackaging? Those are all things that ultimately the manufacturers learned that it was essential to get recovered value on equipment by focusing on doing all the same thing they did in the manufacturing phase of rekitting, remanufacturing, refurbishment, and how that took the recovered value significantly from the early days of the industry to where they are now. You go online to an Apple website and you look to purchase a certain iPad, it might be priced at $599 new, but the refurbish is $539. Well, I can tell you that at the beginning of the industry, we were backing up trucks to manufacturers like Apple, IBM, Compaq, Hewlett Packard, and we were taking out truckloads of inventory at 10 cents on the dollar. This is product returns that we were taking out at 10 cents on the dollar. So if an item was selling brand new for $4,000, we were picking it up for $400 as a product return. Nothing wrong with it half the time. It was just, they didn't want to deal with it. Here, take it. And we took it in truckloads. Once they learned that that was money going out the back door, that was a lost opportunity, they started to realize, hey, I got to fix this problem. So let's talk about that a little bit. You look at the industry as a whole. What does that foster? Well, if you're looking at a 10-cent recovery on value, why did that even happen? Well, first off, they had all these returns they didn't know what to deal with or how to deal with that product. Beyond that, they also learned very quickly that, you know, this is product that was a nuisance. So let's find somebody who will take care of it for us. Often that was somebody inside of the organization who just was given the role of selling it off for the company. And unfortunately, that led to a lot of brother-in-law deals. Matter of fact, some of the more famous ones, you can actually look this up. IBM ultimately sued one of the gentlemen that was tasked with the job of getting rid of material for IBM was Bob St. Germain. He was a married gentleman who ended up partnering with his girlfriend to take millions of dollars worth of IBM gear. And he knew the value, but he only took in a small amount because he sold it to his girlfriend, who made huge amounts of money on the parts value and the whole unit value because they recognized the value, but IBM did not. So this has been a problem in the industry where if you're not paying attention to what's going out your back door, often the person relegated to that responsibility can find value that you're not recognizing, and they take advantage of that. Well, similarly, Packard Bell had the problems of all these product returns. 17% returns is a huge amount of product. So what did they end up doing? Well, they were horrible at supplying parts. Sears was their biggest distributor or retailer at the time, and they couldn't get parts from them. Well, ended up at Packard Bell had real problems because they weren't focused on service. They were focused on manufacturing and sales. They didn't care about supporting the product very well. Matter of fact, they got sued later for the fact that they were actually taking those product returns, repackaging them and selling them as new, even though they were used. So some history of the industry just shows you how things can be redone and done the improper way. Well, one of the companies I worked for was Service Electronics. We were given the contract to handle Sears post-warranty support for extended warranty contracts that they sold in the store, 10 million contracts. Well, at the time, they had over 5,000 back orders of Packard Bell equipment alone where the service had not been performed because they couldn't get service parts from the manufacturer. The premise we won the contract on was the secondary market could provide all the parts necessary for supporting the product using the secondary market as the primary source. We cut their costs and improve the performance by finding used equipment in the open market, harvesting it, repairing it, and supplying it. In the first year alone, we actually took those 5,000 back orders down to just a few dozen back orders, and we saved them over 5 million by proving that the secondary market as a source of supply could supply all the parts needed to support the extended warranty contracts on those contracts. We found the parts, we serviced them, we were able to actually repair a lot of the defective material and put it back into service and satisfy those customers using the secondary market as the sole source of supply. We won Bidder of the Year honors with that. We went on to handle other engagements with major companies like Dell Financial Services. We handled Dell's lease returns, doing about 40,000 units a month. We launched the trade-in program with Apple, as I mentioned. We ended up engaging with other organizations to do product refurbishment. And this is where convincing people that working with the secondary market is to their benefit started to transform the industry. We were initially viewed as a nuisance. The industry as a whole, the secondary market as a whole, was viewed as something, we just got to get rid of this material, take care of it. Well, ultimately, they viewed us as a partner. We were able to convince them that by taking this material, processing it, repairing it, refurbishing it, they could get better recovery. And by partnering with us and giving us consistent flow, we could actually create a secondary market channel for refurbished goods. That took the recovery value from 94 to 98, from 10 cents on the dollar to 62 cents. So it was a huge delta in the recovery. Now, as I say, you look at the recovery value, they're over 100% because we're basing this on cost. They're actually getting more. They're getting more than cost through the refurbishment program by reselling it back as a refurbished product. So what is ITAD? ITAD stands for a couple of things. First off, it's an acronym, IT Asset Disposition. It's also all the related services for IT asset disposition, which includes product decommissioning, logistics, product audit, data destruction, resale, the financial settlement, and e-waste. And finally, it's that longest phase of the product life cycle. It runs from about 3 years to about 10 years. So how big is the ITAD industry? Well, as a whole, it's a huge industry, huge market. It's got in 2018, it was estimated to be about 13 billion. It's said to reach 26 billion by 2026. The US market alone is estimated in 2021 at 5.8 billion. It is compounding at an 8.5% growth rate. It's one of the biggest targets for acquisitions of private equity firms and other organizations that gobble up ITAD companies because of the services we provide are helping to recover value for all the clients that buy those hundreds of millions of assets every year, computers, electronic technology of all types. Getting more and more value recovery is a great service that your retailers can provide, your distributors can provide, your managed service providers can provide when they partner with ITAD organizations and recyclers. And one of the biggest acquisition sides of this equation is from recycling organizations buying ITAD companies that realize they need people that understand how to capture more and more money out of the resale side of the equation, not the recycle side of the equation. So big chunk of this industry is based on data sanitization. We've gotten very efficient at it. We use a NIST 888R1 standard for wiping drives. It actually replaced the DoD wiping protocol of decades before. It's very efficient. Our industry as a whole has adopted this model. We're very conscious about risk mitigation, making sure that your data is never compromised. So what are the things that are important to understand about the industry? First off, we are big believers in product reuse. Finding channels, finding homes for used equipment is what we live and breathe every day. There are organizations around the world that buy this material whole or as parts. And we are always trying to find and cultivate those channels. That's our job. Our other aspect of things that are important is trying to make sure that you get recovered value out of partnering with us when we sell those assets. So everybody is very often worried about cybersecurity being an issue. I'm going to share with you a brief story about one hard drive. One hard drive got lost by a partner that Morgan Stanley had engaged with. They lost track of this hard drive. It had data on it. Well, that prompted an announcement to all of their users. Well, that announcement, along with that lack of control of that asset going out their back door, actually generated ultimately over $100 million in cost from one hard drive. And that hard drive was later found and wiped. It never was compromised, but the damage was already done. So worrying about cybersecurity is great, but it's just as important to worry about what's going out your back door and who your partners are and how they handle that material. We're very, very careful in our industry to make sure that that risk mitigation is in place, the chain of custody control is in place, and we make sure that we give you great reporting and great detail. So the transfer of that liability is given to us, as opposed to you having to be concerned with what happened to my data. So what are the things about selecting a partner that you should be aware of? Well, the number one problem in our industry is fees. A lot of ITAD companies will charge you for audit, they'll charge you for data destruction, they'll charge you for e-waste services. I have seen situations where a $200,000 bid on material turned into a $22,000 bill. And this happens because of fees. They'll make you a huge offer for the equipment, but then you get the actual audit report and the charges, and it can turn the other way. There are a number of organizations in our industry that were notorious for taking $1 million worth of equipment and turning it into $100,000 at recovery. That's a travesty. You should be getting half of that value. If I'm selling it for $1 million, you should be getting well more than 50%. So finding the right partner that doesn't charge fees or charges reasonable fees and gives you high returns, having great channel recovery, great capabilities, and has all the risk mitigation things in place, data and zero landfill, making sure that material does not go to the wrong places. It gets dispositioned properly through certified organizations. That's what we focus on. A couple other good things that you can get with a partner is great ESG reporting. ESG has become the buzzword in boardrooms. Having great detail regarding the carbon footprint impact from your ITAD partner is something that most of the premier organizations in our space can give you. Certifications, R2V3, eSteward, NAID. Fortunately, I was a founder of one of the first R2V3 companies. I just recently sold off my shares, but the organization, we were R2V3, ISO certified, 9001, 14001, and 45001 for process, for environment, and for occupational health and safety. So having certification is absolutely important to show you know what you're doing. Now, you can get good service from non-certified organizations as well. The ratio is about, for every certified organization, there's about 8 that aren't certified. But there are certain things that you should verify is how that material is being processed. And if they know what they're doing it the right way. Strength of the resale channel is another consideration that really dictates the ultimate recovery you're going to get from a partner. So I'm going to give you one example of this. We had an organization that was a major recycler that tapped us for handling the resale on over 10,000 computers. Unfortunately, these computers were what we call C grade. They were really beat up cosmetically. In our industry, it's very easy for an ITAD organization to successfully sell AB grade material. That's retail grade material that could be easily put on eBay, Amazon. It could be just touched up and resold quite easily. This kind of product does not sell easily. This has to have a very robust channel to be sold as a whole unit to get numbers. Now, if you're going to sell it as parts, you can see the parts value in this unit. Wasn't that much. It was about $36. Competitive iPad bids were around $45. Well, because of our success in cultivating a channel for resale material over 4 decades, we were able to recover over $100 a unit and pay our customers over $80 a unit. So they were very happy with the performance we did, giving them well over $800,000 back in recovered value on material that would have got half that through any other ITAD operation. So with that, thank you for the opportunity. My contact information is here. I am president of Tech Remarketers, but I'm also the ITAD executive and remarketing specialist for Recycle Global Exchange. I encourage you to take a look at the attachments regarding the organization. We'd love to work with you if we can be of service.
Well, Mike, that was eye-opening. The amount of money that can be recovered by not throwing your IT stuff in the bin. That was incredible. And I think it also raised a very good point about the risk of cybersecurity if you don't process your material correctly. So that was a huge eye-opener for me, and I'm sure a lot of people on the call were going, oh wow, I need to look at what I'm doing with this, because that's important. So this has been a very, very useful session. So I'd like to thank both of you for sharing your expertise. I think with what we have got today, anybody who's on the call or who watches the replays later on, there's huge potential to maximize or to increase the profitability of their business just by taking a sensible approach to their zero waste, their recycling, their IT reuse. And obviously, we want as many people as possible to benefit from this. So we have created a resource guide. So if you would like to get a copy of the presentations, the material, and there's also some additional user guides in this document, please visit steampoweredconsulting.com, maximize your profits -download, and that's where you can download the resource guide. It's absolutely free. And hopefully you can save money on not shipping. I thought paying to ship air off site was a great way to throw away your profits. But then again, if you can make more than 100% revenue on the cost of your recycled IT products, that's a great way to add another revenue stream back to the business. So please do visit the download link, claim the document. In there is the contact information for Stacy and Mike. And also, if you'd like to access any more of our material, you can just connect with us through our LinkedIn business page. That's the company page is Steam Powered Consulting. All of our monthly webinars are hosted there, so you'll be able to review anything from the past. And obviously, our goal is to help you grow your business, increase your revenue, maximize your profit, and generate the maximum value for your business. And congratulations on the exit, Mike. Not everybody achieves that, so well done. That's always a nice way to crown a career in the business. And if anybody has any questions for me, you're more than welcome just to grab some time. More than happy to have a chat. And if it's on one of the subjects we've covered with Mike and Stacy, their contact information is in the resource guide. And if you want to talk about growing your business or any of the subjects that I cover, more than happy to have a chat. And next month's webinar will be on using LinkedIn for B2B marketing, the 3 essential pillars of your LinkedIn marketing process. So I will hand it back to Mike and Stacy. If there's any closing comments, feel free to share them. We don't have any more questions from the attendees. So anything you'd like to close? Stacy, ladies first. Anything you want to close with? You're muted.
Of course I am, right? You're on. No, you're not. I would just say, a lot of businesses will put their trash and recycling and composting or whatnot, their whole waste management line item budget at the bottom. And it's kind of an afterthought, but it really actually needs to go closer to the top, because the more you can reduce, you can funnel those cost savings down through other programs as well. So in my mind, and what I've seen, the going in a zero waste route is really the fastest and easiest way to optimize a large system within your business, and to help identify and plug money leaks that are happening that you may not know about right now. So being able to identify, those areas where you may be spending and you don't really need to be, is a great way to optimize your business, and getting ahead of the green business wave, the curve that we all know is coming, because believe me, Gen Z and Gen Alpha are not going to let you get off the hook. They're not going to let you off the hook. They will absolutely cancel your business if they find out you're saying one thing and doing another when it comes to environmental justice, social justice issues. So it's important to get ahead in your industry so that you can demonstrate that leadership from the bottom up, and then also from where your CEO is sitting from the top down, that you can have a full kind of whole host of sustainability programs that your consumers, your shareholders, your investors, and your employees can be proud of.
That's a great piece of advice. Thank you. And Michael, over to you.
Yeah, just one thing I'll point out. We worked with a lot of schools and a lot of organizations that thought there was no value in their equipment. We had one school alone that had a typical refresh rate of 8 years. They thought there's no way there's value. First pickup we did for them, we recovered over $33,000. That's money right back into their budget that they were not expecting. The secondary market can provide dollars for your refresh of IT technology. It also can mitigate your risk and eliminate a lot of the costs related to doing data wiping services and things internally. So take advantage of engaging with the secondary market, just like all those manufacturers I've worked with over the years. It's a great industry. It's a tremendously growing industry. And if you work it the right way, it can be quite beneficial to your organization.
Thank you very much, both of you. This has been an eye-opening webinar for me, and I'm sure for the people who've watched it and the people who will be watching the recording. So thank you for sharing your expertise. Please feel free to download the resource guide. I'm sure you'll find it very helpful. And we look forward to seeing everybody next month. Thanks again.
Thank you.